ਇੱਕ ਓੰਕਾਰ ਸਤਿਨਾਮ ਕਰਤਾ ਪੁਰਖ ਨਿਰਭਉ ਨਿਰਵੈਰ ਅਕਾਲ ਮੂਰਤ ਅਜੂਨੀ ਸੈਭੰ ਗੁਰ ਪ੍ਰਸਾਦ ਜਪ ਆਦਿ ਸੱਚ ਜੁਗਾਦ ਸੱਚ ਹੈ ਭੀ ਸੱਚ ਨਾਨਕ ਹੋਸੀ ਭੀ ਸੱਚ ਇੱਕ ਓੰਕਾਰ ਸਤਿਨਾਮ ਕਰਤਾ ਪੁਰਖ ਨਿਰਭਉ ਨਿਰਵੈਰ ਅਕਾਲ ਮੂਰਤ ਅਜੂਨੀ ਸੈਭੰ ਗੁਰ ਪ੍ਰਸਾਦ ਜਪ ਆਦਿ ਸੱਚ ਜੁਗਾਦ ਸੱਚ ਹੈ ਭੀ ਸੱਚ ਨਾਨਕ ਹੋਸੀ ਭੀ ਸੱਚ ਵਾਹਿਗੁਰੂ 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 ਜੀ ਕਾ ਖਾਲਸਾ ਵਾਹਿਗੁਰੂ ਜੀ ਕੀ ਫਤਿਹ. So for those of you that don't know me, my name is Gurmillan Singh. I've been a teacher for the past few years, so aspects of today's talk might be a bit teachery, so I apologize for that now. But with the theme being of Simran, Seva and Sacrifice, my talk is predominantly going to be about sacrifice with links to Seva and Simran at the same time, okay? Hopefully it's going to be quite interactive and it's not going to be just me talking. There's going to be certain aspects where you're going to be asked questions, where I want you to discuss with one another. We are going to go through a Shabad and we're going to try together to actually try and understand what the Shabad is actually saying. What is Guru Sahib teaching us within this Shabad, okay? So just a way of starting, I've just got some questions. So obviously the talk is about the importance of sacrifice. What do we think about when sacrifice is mentioned? What are some benefits of sacrifice? Why should we make sacrifices in our lives? And what are some sacrifices that we have made and should continue to make in the future? Okay, so I'm just going to give you a minute with the person next to you, either side of you. Just have a little discussion. What do you think about when you think about sacrifice? Use these questions as a starting point, and then we'll come back and we'll share some of our answers. Okay, let's go. You got a minute. Okay, so what do we think about then? What do we think about when the word sacrifice is mentioned? There's no right or wrong answer, by the way. Yes.
Well, that's body with that beauty discuss.
You have to give something up as well.
Okay. Yeah.
That could be anything, like could be like a bit of ego,
Thank you.
a bit of laziness,
Yeah.
whatever it is.
So giving something up, okay, many different things. What could we give up? Okay, yes. Excellent, well done. Sleep, okay, especially at this camp. Especially at this camp where you got to wake up at 4 o'clock. I mean, so you got to be in the bar side for 4 o'clock, okay? So if we look at this camp as a perfect example, this is what we've done with all the talk so far. So what sacrifices do we make at camp? So the first one is sleep, that you're saying, okay? The way the schedule here is at the camp, there's not much time for you to sleep. There's not actually much time for you to sleep because we don't actually have much time here, right? So you have to sacrifice your sleep. Whether that's in the morning or in the evening, you might want to go sleep early, but obviously with the talks going on, it's hard, isn't it? It's hard to wake up in the morning running off such little sleep, but it's a sacrifice that we have to make, isn't it? Okay, so we have to sacrifice our sleep. What else have you sacrificed here at camp? Okay, time to come to camp, yes. So for some, assuming everyone works in the room, some of you might just be leaving education maybe, I'm not too sure. But you've given up time, isn't it? You've probably taken holidays from work that you could have used elsewhere, and you've given up that time to come to camp, to come and stay with Maharaj for 5 days, okay? So time is a very big thing. You give up your time to come to camp. What else do you give up? By the way, I don't mind awkward silences, I will just wait.
You know, like we have to do like stay in dorms.
Yeah.
You have to like bringing it.
You have to give up that luxury, isn't it?
No luxury, isn't it? Like,
You luxury sharing bathrooms with like random people that you don't know. Yeah. Staying in a little small room, or some of you might even be on bunk beds, who knows? But you give up that luxury to come to camp, isn't it? You come out of your comfort zone. That's something that you have to sacrifice as well. Okay, it's not something I actually thought about until you said that, GP, right? But yeah, you give up your luxury. What else? There's one key thing. Money. Well done. Okay, you've given up money to come to camp. Okay, you've had to pay to come to camp. You could have used that money elsewhere, but you've sacrificed that to come to camp so that you can stay with Maharaj for 5 days. And you're going to receive the laha of that. You're going to receive the benefit of that. Okay? So here at camp, even if we just think about just us guys now, what we're doing for the next part, for over the past 2 days and the next 3 days, or whatever it is, we've given up so many things. Okay, we've sacrificed sleep, we've sacrificed time, you've sacrificed luxury, you sacrifice money as well. For the right cause, isn't it? You sacrifice yourself for the right purpose. And what today's talk is going to be about is exactly that. Making sacrifices for the right cause. Sacrificing things for the right purpose. Figuring out what that right purpose is. What is that right cause? Okay? So, in all the other groups, when talking about what sacrifice is, what else would you think it is? So we've talked about time, we've talked about sacrifice at camp. What's another sacrifice that comes to mind for you? I think they're having a debate which one's going to say the point. Okay, yes. How do you sacrifice your intellect? Mm-hmm. 100%. One of the biggest sacrifices that we should all have in our minds is that sacrificing ourselves to the Guru. Okay, that could be physically, or it could be talking about how Benji is talking about how we give up our mat and we use Gurmat. Okay, we use Gurmat to then actually the Guru's way of thinking, that we adopt that to be our way of thinking. Okay, and that's gonna come back a bit later on in the talk. Okay, about how that intellect, how we have to sacrifice that. Okay, it's actually a constant theme throughout the talk, is how our intellect works, how our mind works, that process that we go through. Okay, so we have to sacrifice our way of thinking. Okay, what else? When we think of sacrifice, what do you think of?
Families, like kids, like university, you don't have enough time to spend with family.
Yeah, so you have to make sacrifices. You might have to sacrifice things you enjoy to raise your kids, isn't it? It's one thing I'm finding at the camp, with my little one running around the camp, is something new to me. And say if I would go sit in the bar side, it's not always possible through the advance because he wants to do his own thing over there. But you have to sacrifice, okay? Not just in camp, but outside the camp. You have to make sacrifices for your children. And again, we're going to link that into the talk a bit later on. What else do we sacrifice? What else? Don't even just think about ourselves. When you think of sacrifice, what do you think of? Think of like a larger scale now. Okay, you have to sacrifice the outside world, the way that the world thinks. Yes. You had a very good example last night, of sacrifice. What am I alluring to? Shaheed, isn't it? Okay. So ironically enough, all the other groups have said this as a first thing, but then didn't come on to mention the things that you have. Okay. So Shaheed, isn't it? Shaheed Singhs and Singhs, the sacrifices that they have made, that they've sacrificed their lives for their Guru, okay? And we mentioned about that right cause, what the right purpose is. They have done it. They've showed us the way. They've showed us the right cause, the right purpose, who we should be making that sacrifice for, okay? And that is for our Guru. And when we think about Shaheed Singhs and Singhs, we think about that moment. We think about the moment when they give the... Shaheed, that was supposed to be very annoying about the whole talk, isn't it? We think about their Shaheed, we think about that moment. For example, if we look at what we was learning yesterday from Bibiji, when they talked about Bhai Gurmillan Singh, okay? We think about June 1984. We think about the moment that they gave their Shaheed. We think about those days of June 5th or June 6th, okay? What it must have been like in that battle, in that jang. But what was mentioned in yesterday's talk is what happens after that, isn't it? That it's not just sacrifice in that moment, there's sacrifice after that we often overlook and we forget. That not just by Bhai Gurmillan Singh, but all of the Shaheed Singhs, okay? They sacrificed their lives. but they also sacrifice the well-being of their family. They also sacrifice the quality of life potentially of what their family is going to have, because their family members are going to be harassed by police. Okay, they might have to live in with a household without either a father figure or a mother figure is hard. Okay, it's not something I've had to experience, but I can only imagine what that's like. But that's a sacrifice that they're willing to make for their guru. Even though it's going to be hard for their parivar, even though it's going to be hard for their family, they're still willing to make that sacrifice because it's for the right cause. Because it's for the right purpose, isn't it? And that's what we need to try and figure out, of what our purpose is. What is that cause for us? How are we going to serve Siddhi Guru Granth Sahib Ji Maharaj? Because they've found their way, okay? Becoming a Shaheed is not something like a normal person like myself is going to be able to do, okay? I'm nowhere near the caliber of a Sikh they are. I'm not even the dust of their feet. So I have to find a way of dedicating my life to my Guru, making sacrifices for my Guru and finding the right cause that is linked to my Guru, isn't it? If someone was to ask me this question, of when I think about sacrifice, what comes to mind? One word in particular comes to my mind, and that is of dedication. Because we're on the topic of Shaheed Singhs and singing here, the reason why they've been able to do what they do, okay, is not like just one day they thought, you know what, I'm going to go give my Shaheedi now, okay? It's something that they've made a pattern in their minds, their dedication. They've dedicated their life to their Guru over and over and over again. In order to give Shaheedi, you have to be dedicated. In order to follow Guru Sahib's teachings, you have to be dedicated. In order to come to camp, you have to have some form of dedication. We're all on different paths, okay? We're all at different stages within our journey. But one thing we all have in common is you have dedication of some form. Some might have more than others, but that's fine. It's everybody's personal journey, isn't it? But we've all had enough dedication to sacrifice our time, our luxury, our money, our sleep to come to this camp. So we all have that in common. We have made that dedication. Anybody know who that is in the middle in that photo? Thank you. So this is by Surinder Singh Sodhi, okay? If anybody doesn't know about the Jeevan, please do go and read it, okay? It is inspiring, okay? I remember the first time I read the Jeevan, I've never forgot it, okay? Fortunately, we don't have the time to go through the Jeevan, but I want to use this image in particular, okay? That when we think of Shaheed Singhs, we can mention their dedication, we can mention the sacrifice that they have made, right? We think about the Seva they did. Even if we think about by Surinder Singh Sodhi, those of you that know what the Seva that they carried out, that they were close to Sandagani Janeer Singh Ji. Sandagani Janeer Singh Ji referred to them as their right arm. That's how close they were to Sandhaji, okay? That the Seva that they carried out was immense, right? And you can only do that if you're dedicated. And another part of their Shaheedi that we overlook is what they did before they actually get involved in that Seva, isn't it? That they have to be dedicated in order to build that relationship with their Guru. Obviously, this is many, many janams worth of dedication. It's not just come to the forefront in that life form, okay? But even in that life form, they give us teachings. They show us the way of how to connect to our Guru. They still show dedication to their Guru. So in this picture, you can see Bhai Sahib practicing their Santhya, isn't it? Learning the correct pronunciations of Gurbani. Learning and practicing them. So when we do Santhya, some of you might do Santhya in the room, some of you might want to start to do Santhya. So Santhya is where we learn the correct pronunciations of Gurbani, how Guru Sahib themselves have taught it, okay? It is about sacrifice. Not just sacrificing your time to go to the class or the Gurdwara Sahib to learn, to have been taught, where that probably lasts around about 30 minutes or whatever it is your lesson is, but it's about making that being dedicated enough to practice it outside of that lesson. Because when you do something, you have to practice it outside of the lesson. You don't just read it once. The mistakes you make, you have to correct by reading it over and over and over again. Now that takes dedication. Dedication to read the same thing over and over again, first and foremost. But especially with most of us, we're probably in a similar situation where we have work life, we have children as well. It's hard to balance it. And we might say that we don't have time, unfortunately, for our Sikhi. But it's about being dedicated enough to sacrifice these same things. These same things that we're sacrificing at camp, okay, we needed to then implement in our lives at home. You're not going to be able to do it on the same scale that we do it at camp, okay? You're not probably going to be able to wake up and wake up after like 2-3 hours worth of sleep every day, okay, you're probably not going to be able to go to divans as long as they are, like twice a day, okay? You might not be able to do seva in the same day as that you go to the Gurdwara Sahib and whatnot, okay? But it's about taking parts, aspects of camp and implementing it in our lives. We're saying that we sacrifice sleep, right? We're saying we sacrifice time. So perhaps we don't watch a TV show and we give time to our santhya, okay? Or we go sleep, we sacrifice our time by going to sleep earlier so we can wake up earlier, okay? It's about making that routine at home so that we can follow this path of dedication. So the sacrifices that we make here at camp, we have to implement in our own life, okay? All those things that we mentioned at the beginning is going to be linked back into the talk a bit later on. So in order to make sacrifices, you have to be dedicated, okay? And it's about a journey for you guys to figure out what that path is, how you're going to show that dedication to your guru, okay? But this is an aspect that we often overlook, is even when we think about the Shaheed Singhs, we think about the action, okay? But we forget about the build-up to that, the hard work, the dedication that they show us. They don't need to do that because it was always written for them to become a Shaheed. They've had many, many janams worth, many life forms worth of meditation that they've built up for them to obtain Shaheedi. But yet they still do that to give us a teaching. They're still showing us the path to our guru, isn't it? Okay? So it's about dedicating ourselves to the right cause, dedicating ourselves to the right thing, that right purpose. But on the flip side of it, on the reverse, there's many different things that we can dedicate ourselves that are going to cause us pain. Okay? That if we attach ourselves to the wrong things, it's going to harm our spirituality. If we attach ourselves to anything that is subject to change, we are going to feel pain. What do you deem to be subject to change? It's going to be a theme to that. The whole talk is this subject to change. What do you think is subject to change? Okay, the world is subject to change. Okay, if you look at global warming, it's changing all the time. If we're talking about physically the world, okay, the world's changing every day. It's not the same as it was 10 years ago. And it's not going to be the same in 10 years' time. It's going to change. You attach yourself to it, you're going to feel pain, isn't it? What else is subject to change? Okay, you attach yourself to technology, okay? You become reliant, you become dependent on technology. Again, it's going to change, okay? Let's say, for example, Benji's mentioned AI. I'm going to look at it from a school aspect, okay? Many of my students used to use AI to answer the homework, yeah? To do the homework. Nice, easy, they're relying on it, but it's subject to change because you can't use it everywhere. It's not something you can pull out everywhere. So when they come to do the exam in my lesson, they can't do it. They can't pull out that same level of thing. And it's so obvious that they use AI, okay? So they're going to experience pain when they see the result. It's not the same as what they were getting then, okay? Because they have not put the dedication in. They have not put the hard work in to obtain that result, isn't it? Okay? Baisa, what did you say? Family. Family is subject to change for sure, okay? In many different aspects. The first aspect, if we look at it in terms of, I'm sure we've all experienced a family member passing away, okay? We attach ourselves to family, rightly so. That's where we get that pyar from, that's where we get that love from, isn't it? Okay? And when that person has passed away, we show that emotion. We miss them, we grieve, okay? Because we're attached to them. And now, when we talk about attachment, probably the hardest aspect to talk about is family. Because there's a fine line, isn't it? Like, we're not saying that you shouldn't love your family, you shouldn't show respect to your family. It's not about that, but it's about accepting that bana, accepting that hukum of Maharaj, you know? That everybody comes into this world with an equal platform. It's whatever we've earned through our previous karams, through our previous actions. We all have a certain amount of breaths within the world. That's not, sometimes what happens when someone passes away, we start to resent God. We say that Maharaj why does this happen? Why has Maharaj done this? Why has God done this? Why is this happening to me? We start resenting God on what's happening to us, but we're not actually accepting and understanding that we've earned it. If someone lives in this world for 40 years, that's what they've earned through their previous actions. If someone lives for 80 years, that's what they've earned. If we have dukkha within our lives, it's what we have earned. It's our own actions that are coming back to us. We reap the rewards of our own actions, isn't it? Okay, so family is subject to change because somebody's here one day and they pass away the next. It might be falling out between family members. You might be very close with a particular family member at what certain stage of your life, but then something happens and you no longer talk to them. It's subject to change. Okay, what else is subject to change? Why would you say life? You're right, life is a very good answer.
You're born and you're dead.
Exactly, okay? So if we look at life, we take it as the body, yeah? The body is subject to change. Life is subject to change. You're alive one day and you die the next, okay? Some live longer than others, some don't, isn't it? But if we attach ourselves to this body, right? And more particularly in terms of like our looks, our status within the world, yeah? The status, the fame, the value that we have within this life, okay? If we attach ourselves to that, we're going to face pain because, again, it's subject to change. If you compare yourselves to 10 years ago, what did you look like? Look completely different. You compare yourselves to 10 years' time. If we're still here, we're going to look completely different. If we look at status, okay, then we might be famous. We might be very popular at one moment in time, but that goes in an instant. When we're famous, when we have all of that good stuff, Maharaj tells us then we have loads of people around us. Okay? You'll see this practically. In the times of good, when you're high, when you're elevated, there'll be a lot of people around you. But when you're in dukh, when you're in pain, how many people are going to be around you? That feeling of high and low is subject to change, isn't it? If you attach yourself to that thing that is subject to change, that status, that popularity, that fame, the body, you're going to face pain. Because one day it's going to change. It's a guarantee. What else is subject to change? There's one major thing.
Emotion.
Sorry? Emotion. Emotion we fluctuate, isn't it? Yes? Okay, friends, yeah, we mentioned people, something change. Works as well, because if we, like for example, you had a perfect example yesterday where BBG was talking about how she's in love with her job. Because her job goes hand in hand with a Sikhi. Overseeing 49 Sikh schools within Punjab, where it gives her satisfaction, isn't it, of helping Naujawan connect to their Guru. So her work goes hand in hand with her Sikhi, isn't it? So that is, put everything into that. But if you're like me going through a career change, I'm going into IT now, okay? That's just a means to an end to me. It's just something that I have to do, okay? It's not something I'm going to attach myself to, that I'm going to kill myself working crazy hours because that's what's important to me. That's subject to change. I could get fired tomorrow, okay? I could lose that job and then all those hours I've put in, that dedication I showed to that is worthless. And that's obviously going to bring me down, isn't it? So you see that as something that we have to do. You put your all into it, into the hours that you're meant to do. You do it by the book. Okay, that's the way of Sikhi. You do it by the book. You do give everything, but you don't attach yourself to it. Because you know that, obviously, I'm doing this work, but the goal of my life is Maharaj, is union with God. That's what I want to do. And if we look at it in terms of money, okay, money's here one day and gone the next. Again, you have a lot of money, you have a lot of people around you, I guarantee you. Okay? You see so many friends that speak to you differently. Okay? Second that you lose it, they won't even look your way. Okay? They won't even look your way. So again, that's all subject to change. You attach yourselves to that. If you cheat people, if you screw people over, or you earn your money in a corrupt way, it's subject to change. It's subject to change and you're going to feel pain. Okay? So it's about connecting and finding that purpose. Dedicating our life, sacrificing our life for the right cause, that right purpose. And within Gurbani, Guru Sahib gives us a Shabad. And this Shabad teaches us about the dangers of attaching ourselves, of dedicating our lives to the wrong cause. Okay? And this Shabad can be found on Ang 526 in Rag Goojaree. Okay? Is written by Bhagat Tirlochan Ji. Okay? The Thanika. Anybody know what does a Thanika mean? Well done. The background. Okay, the background of how the Shabad is written, the story of how the Shabad was written. And the Thanika for this Shabad was that there was a woman in the times of Bhagat Tirlochan Ji, and she would claim to be a Devi, a deity. And she would tell people that do puja of me, worship me, and you'll be able to be liberated. Okay? And one of the Sevadars of Bhagat Tirlochan Ji asked Bhagat Ji a question that can someone obtain mukti, can they obtain liberation, freedom for the 8.4 million life forms without remembering Vaheguru? Okay? And Bhagat Tirlochan gives us this teaching within this Shabad. Now, unfortunately today, some people don't man the Shabad. They don't believe in the Shabad. They say that Bhagat Tirlochan, that it was Bhagat Tirlochan Ji that wrote it. It wasn't actually Guru Sahib. Okay? So they don't actually believe in the Shabad. But that is a shanka. That is a doubt that is completely off the mark. Okay? The Guru Arjan Dev Saji Maharaj has taken the Bani of the Bhagats and incorporated it into Gurbani. So that is the form of the Guru. Okay? Whatever is written within Sri Guru Granth Sahib Ji Maharaj is our Guru. Okay? Doesn't matter whether it was Guru Arjan Dev Ji, Guru Nanak Dev Sahib Ji Maharaj, or any of the Bhagats that have written it, is our Guru. The word of God is God for us. Okay? So we will find people that have shanka of the Shabad, but they're completely off the mark. They're going to face the consequences of their actions if they have that full process. Okay? So when we read the Pankti, if I say Bhagat Tirlochan Ji says this, or I say Guru Sahib says this, it's the same thing. Okay? Just to make that clear. So in this Shabad, they give us these teachings. Now, who can remember their last thought before they went to sleep last night? You don't have to tell me, but can you remember it? Okay, just keep it in mind today then, right? Your last thought at a particular time. Set like, it might be 5 o'clock or it might be 10 o'clock. Whatever their thought process is at that time, just I want you to keep that in mind, okay? Because let's say that was your last thought, right? Let's say your last thought before you went to sleep, or your last thought just now, okay? Whatever that was, it might just be like, oh, I wanted to talk to hurry up and then I wanted to stop talking, whatever it was. Or you might be thinking about Langar. You might be thinking, I want to go home and sleep, I want to count to finish, whatever it might be, okay? So I didn't ask you to share what it was because I didn't know what was going to come back. Imagine that was your last thought. Whether it was your last thought just now, or your last thought before you went to sleep, okay? Or it might be your last thought that happens tonight, okay? Do you think that has an impact on you? Let's say that, when I say that was your last thought, I mean saying that you die after having that thought. Okay? Do you think that has an impact on the outcome? What's going to happen to you? We all think so, yeah? So, what would you want your last thought to be? Something good? What is something good? Because my last thought could be about Arsenal winning the league. That's something good to me. But what's that going to get me? So when we use this word good, we have to be careful, isn't it? Something good can mean anything. Because that is, that's specific to the person, isn't it? So for example, it is subject to change. For example, I've given the example of Arsenal winning the league. That's something good to me. Some of you might hate Arsenal. Okay, that's not a good thing for you. Okay, so when we use the word good, or when we say good actions, we have to be careful what that is. We want to do the best actions, isn't it? And that is of Kirtan, of Gatha, of remembering Maharaj, isn't it? So I'm sure we can all agree that we want our last thought to be about Maharaj. That it might show gratitude to Maharaj, like we might think of Sri Guru Gobind Singh Sahib Ji Maharaj, that they gave their 4 sons for us to have this life today. That might be the last form. We might remember Sri Guru Arjan Dev Sahib Ji Maharaj sitting on the Tatti Tavi. We might see the Seva of Guru Ramdas Sahib Ji Maharaj, okay? Or we might just remember Guru Granth Sahib Ji Maharaj. We might remember a particular Pangati. Whatever it is, I'm sure we can all agree that we want our last thought to be something to do with Sikhi, something to be about Maharaj, But how can you ensure that that happens? How do you control your last thought?
Well, if you practice constantly do the art of Maharaj, then you'd hope that would be on your mind anyway.
Mm-hmm. So you're right in what you're saying, that you technically probably can't control your last thought, but we could try our very best, isn't it? Okay, by making it a pattern, isn't it? Okay, yes. So doing Simran before you sleep, but it's not always guaranteed that you're going to pass away in your sleep, isn't it? You can pass away right now. How does that sound?
Books before that and sport, so that.
Uh-huh. So you're right, it is about those thoughts before, isn't it? But your thoughts at that last moment in time is only going to be something that you've made a pattern, okay? The pattern that you've made in your mind. The thought processes that your mind has constantly, okay? Whatever you've made a pattern, whatever you've made a routine, whatever you've dedicated your life to, whether that's the good or the bad, that's most likely what's going to happen to you. That's the last thought that's going to come to you. So for example, if you think about football, okay, I watch football, we talk about football, we have discussions about football, isn't it? We do everything, we play football, whatever it is, right? I made that that's a routine. There's a pattern within my life. There's a thought process within my mind. Straight away, isn't it? There's a pattern there. It's an avenue for my mind to go down straight away. And so many things are going to sprout from that. So if we dedicate ourselves to the wrong things, and we attach ourselves to the wrong things, the wrong purposes, the wrong cause, then that is that pattern, that brainwave, that avenue that we create in our mind, at the end, that's what our mind's going to go to. Only if with Guru Sahib's Kirpa, if we are able to recite God's name, we're able to follow Guru Sikhi, will that be the last thought? But if we don't, in this Shabad, it teaches us what happens to us, okay? If we attach ourselves, if we dedicate ourselves, if we make sacrifices for the wrong things, Guru Sahib tells us what happens, okay? So, Guru Sahib says to us, Antakal jo lachmi simre, aisi chinta mehe mare. So, some of us might be able to read that or hear that and understand what that means, okay? Some of us might be able to pick out certain words and understand what that means. So if we try and understand it together. So if we look at the first part, Antakala jo lachmi simre, what words do we understand? Yes? Okay, well, so ant means end. Kala can obviously mean two things. It can mean death or it can mean time. Because we're mentioning ant, we're meaning end, referring to time. Yes, Benji, would you just... Sorry? Lachmi means money, well done. It means Maya, isn't it? Okay. So antakal jo lachmi. So at the end, money. So obviously when we do Artha Gurwani, you have to like rejig it, isn't it? Okay. What does simare mean? To think, isn't it? To remember. So similar to Simran, isn't it? When we do Simran, it might be something that we're doing physically, that we're reciting over and over again. But when we're doing that, we're remembering, aren't we? We're remembering what we're reciting. We're remembering Maharaj at that time, isn't it? Through Simran. But if you remember, at the end time, if you remember Lakshmi, if you remember Maya, if you... Maya could be anything that takes you away from Guru Sahib. Okay? But in this particular concept, in this context, we're going to use it in referring to wealth. Yeah? In terms of money. Yeah? So, Antakal, jo Lakshmi simre, aisi chinta mehe mare. So, what does chinta mean? Worries, mare, nice and easy. To die, isn't it? Okay? So if we pass away with our last thought, with that worry of maya, of wealth, like I've had so much money, what's going to happen to that money? That, I wish I could have earned more money, that I didn't get a chance to earn enough. If we die with those kind of thought processes, Guru Sahib, Bhagat Ji are going to teach us what happens, okay? What the outcome of that is. But before we get into what the outcome is, there's a Sakhi that comes. Where there was a very wealthy person, a very wealthy individual. He had spent his life accumulating maya, accumulating wealth, accumulating treasure, in whatever form you deem that to be, right? And when it comes to his last moments, okay, what happens when we're about to die? What is that process?
Do you want to try me get close to it?
So we want to get close to God, but say if we don't do that, okay? Say if we don't become one with God, say we're just people of the world, what happens? So reincarnation does happen, but reincarnation skips a few steps now. There's something before we get to reincarnation. There's a few things before that, actually. So we have death here, okay? And then we have a couple steps in the middle. Okay, Dada is here, but yeah, we're still... It's not when you die, you instantly meet Dada Maharaj. What happens in between? The Jamduls take you, isn't it? Okay? So the Jamduls are like the angels of death, right? And people of the world, when they pass away, the Jamdoots come, the angel of death takes them, and they go on like a year-long journey to go. So it takes a year our time. This is what Gurbani tells us, if you listen to the Katha. It takes a year to get to that place where Maharaj resides. Okay? And along that journey, is tool that is very hot, very bright. Okay? And the Jamdoots are beating us. They're beating those souls that are being taken to judgment, right? And we don't get any shade, we don't get any water. That the Jamdoots show us some kind of daya, some kinds of compassion, that they'll give us that water, they'll give us that shade, but we have to give something up. What do you think we have to give up? Al-Kamai in terms of what? Okay, so those good actions, isn't it? Bearing in mind where we're going to Maharaj to receive judgment, isn't it? If we give up some of our Kamai, if we give up some of those good actions that we've committed, okay, think of a scale, we give up those good actions that we've committed, some of them, what's going to happen? The balance is not going to be in our favor. Our bad actions are going to come to the forefront, isn't it? So that judgment is going to be very harsh upon us. Obviously, if you follow the way of good Sikhi, we don't even have to go to Maharaj. We don't even have to come to the Jamdoots. We take it in chariots. Guru Sahib themselves come, the Panch Pyare come themselves. And if we dedicate ourselves and we sacrifice our lives to that true purpose, that true cause, that one person that is outside of subject to change, which is Maharaj themselves, they will come themselves. We don't even have to worry about that. But for this wealthy person, the Jamdoots came. And this person does a binti, does a request to the Jamdoots that please let me go and see my Maya one last time. Let me go see that treasure that I've accumulated. And when he came there, he does a binti to the treasure. Just like how we do a binti to Maharaj whenever we're in danger, we ask Guru Sahib to protect us, to save us from the naraka that we might go into. He does this request to his Maya. And from the Maya, from that treasure, from that wealth, come a voice. And that voice said that you're asking for protection from us, but we cannot protect you because you have not actually used us for any good cause. That this person was saying, he was doing that binti, that I've kept so much respect of you, I've kept so much satgar of my Maya, I've not even let a speck of dust touch my wealth. That's how well I've looked after it. And the Vaj comes from the Maya, from that treasure, that you might have looked after us so well, but you haven't used this Maya, you haven't used us for a good cause. Na kete langar laya. You haven't gone and given out langar anyway. You haven't used this Maya, you haven't sacrificed the Maya, that money, to go and pay for langar. Na kise gareeb di madad kiti. Nor have you used this Maya to go and help a poor person. If you had done that, it would have accumulated good actions for you. And that would have come to your benefit now. But because you not made that sacrifice, because you was attached to that money, you didn't help a poor person, we cannot help you now. Those actions would have benefited you. And it's a teaching to us that earning money is important within this life, okay? To sambal our households, okay? To sambal our family, to look after our kids. It's very important. But Guru Sahib gives us a teaching. They make it easy for us. It's a command of our Guru that we have to give the Savanda back to the Khalsa. We have to give 1/10 of our earnings back to the Khalsa. Whether that's to give it to Langar, give it to Shaheed Parvars, to pay for something in the Godara Sahib. Okay? Guru Sahib is making us do good actions because it's going to benefit us. We cannot be attached to Maya, we cannot be attached to money and cheat people over it, hurt people in order to make more money, earn it in a dishonest way. Because it's subject to change. Because it's subject to change, we're going to feel pain when we don't have it. And this is what this wealthy person finds out. Because he didn't use it for any good cause, the Maya cannot help him. He tries making a deal with the Jamdoots that why don't you take half of it, I'll take the other half, and I get to live, you get half the Maya. Or what about a third? Leave me a third of it, you take the rest. It's of no use, it doesn't go with you in the end, isn't it? Okay? So whilst we have it, we should sacrifice it and dedicate it for a good cause. Just like how you have all come to the camp. Okay? You've paid money to be here. Okay? You've spent your hard-earned money on coming to camp for the right cause, for the right purpose, isn't it? And if we do that, that's one of the best guidance that we can do, isn't it? But if we don't, if we get attached to it, and our last thought about Maya, okay, because we've said the last thought that we're going to have is something that we have made patterns within our mind, isn't it? something that we've made a habit of thinking about, having that chinta, having that worry about money, because we've created that avenue within our mind, that thought process within our mind. Guru Sahib tells us, Sarap jona vala vala uttare. Any of you know what it's referring to? Sarap ki hunda? Snake, isn't it? So if you attach yourselves to Maya, I said that would happen. If you attach yourselves to Maya, if you attach yourself to money, then you are going to be reborn as a snake. Vala vala uttare. Over and over and over and over and over again. It is very difficult for a sap to receive mukti, to be liberated from that june, because it's so intoxicated within Maya. And even if you look at it itself, if you had a scale, okay, of good life forms within the 8.4 million life forms, and you have low forms of life, bad forms of life, where would you place a snake? Low, isn't it? Because even if we took a look at it in the worldly sense, look at the quality of life of a snake. If there was a snake here, we would probably run, okay? No one says like, yeah, I love snakes. I keep a pet snake or whatnot, okay? No one does it. They don't have no satgad in this world, okay? There's no respect of a snake. The treatment is very ill-treated, isn't it? Especially within Punjab, obviously, with Khetar. They're very dangerous, aren't they? Not just dangerous to us, but even if you actually deep it and understand that they have poison within inside themselves. That poison affects them. Because they have that poison within inside of them. They're born with poison. So it's a very low form of life. It's very hard for them to actually receive mukti from that life form. So if you think about money, that what's going to happen to it, how it's just whatever it is, if that's your last thought, because that's the patterns that you've made, you're going to be a snake. Okay? And why a snake? And it might be a question, why is it a snake? The snake is very attached to Maya. And there's a Sakhi from the times of Bhagat Singh who would carry out the seva of handwriting sroops of Sri Guru Granth Sahib Ji Maharaj. Now these aren't sroops that they've written, these are just hatilika sroops, just so you can see what they would look like. Okay, and so they had that Mahan seva of writing Sri Guru Granth Sahib Ji Maharaj's sroops. And in that time there was a sadhu, and the sadhu went to Gomda Mela, and he had pothya, right? He had like scriptures, he had granths. He left them on top of in the Alamari where Baba Bir Singh would carry out that seva, right? And so he passes away. Now one day when Baba Bir Singh Ji is writing, doing that likhai, okay, when they're writing out that Gurbani, another dhyan that goes on top of the Alamari. They see, their attention goes to the Alamari and they see a snake sitting on top of it. And they call a sevadar saying, listen, we need to get this up out of here. And after they have a dialogue that how has this snake come here? And then the sevadar is like, well, there are some pothi sahibs in there that belong to that sadhu. And Baba Bir Singh Ji was obviously of a very high caliber of goddessic. They said it looks as if that sadhu has passed away with Maya in his mind. Now we might be thinking that how does that make sense? Because it's just pothi sahibs, it's just scriptures, it's just Granths. How does that refer to Maya? When they opened the pothi sahibs, there was money inside. There was money inside the pothi sahibs, and that sadhu was thought about those pothi sahibs that had it in. Because he thought of that, because it was attached to that money, he made those thought processes, he made that avenue within his mind as a habit. That was his last thought, and he's been reborn as that snake, and he's come back to that Maya. So it's very hard to receive liberation because they're always constantly attached to that Maya, something that is subject to change. If you attach yourself to something that's subject to change, it might go as far as you're going to be reborn over and over and over again. It could take it to that extreme. Okay? So it's about learning the dangers. Again, coming back to the topic of the talk, of sacrifice, of dedication to the right cause, to that right purpose. It is not Maya. We can use Maya for great things, of carrying out great seva. You could do that passively by donating to organizations such as Seek to Inspire or any of the other Sikh organizations. That's passively, just set up the direct debits. That's your dasvand going out, isn't it? So you're using the Maya that you have for a good cause. You can go do Langar di Seva, fund it. You can go to Punjab and see the parvaz where there's greeb, where there's poverty. Go and help there. Water pumps, wherever it may be. Okay? There's great initiatives out there for you to join. If you use the maya, it will come in handy. If we don't, there'll be snakes. Okay? and then Guru Sahib Bhagat Tirlochan Ji is giving us a teaching that we should remember Gobind. We should remember the master of the universe. That we should never be sedate. We should never forget their naam. Okay? We should never forget their name. That this is a teaching for us. We said it links to Simran as well. That is what's going to create that full process. That you all said that you wanted to remember Maharaj in that last full. You have to make it a habit. Okay? You have a fantastic opportunity here at camp to do that. But then after camp, it can't just be the end of it and you go back to your normal lives. It's about incorporating certain aspects of the camp, whether it's the Nityam routine, whether it's the Seva that you're going to be doing, or it might be waking up at a certain time. You incorporate that into your lives. And remember Maharaj throughout your daily life, throughout each day, throughout the rest of your lives, okay? Because those habits, they can't wait till tomorrow. They have to start now. You have to create those avenues, those positive avenues now. So from here on in, the Shabad, the Bhangati is very similar. Only one word changes, okay? So we talked about what happens if you remember Lakshmi, if you remember Maya, okay? Now Guru Sahib is telling us, Antakala jo istri simre, aisi chinta meheje mare. What is an istri? Sailani? Women, isn't it? Okay? Now, just to remove any confusion, although it says istri, and obviously istri is a woman, is not just a teaching for men. Okay? It is also for women as well. If you think about men, if you have any kaam da forna, if you have any forna, every thought about lust as your last action, your last thought in this world, okay, where you're lusting over the opposite gender, this is what this teaching is. Although Bhagaji has used istri, it's for male and female here. Okay? So if somebody passes away with the forna about istri, about the opposite gender, they die within that chinta. That person deems women, or vice versa, more beloved to them than their own breath. Now, if we actually try to understand what that means in terms of something being more valuable to you than your own breath. Breath is something that we cannot survive without, isn't it? But these people value that calm, that lust, those actions, even more so than they value their own lives. If someone passes away with that forna, okay, Guru Sahib tells us what happens. Now, if we make this a habit, okay, we make this a habit of thinking and lusting after people of the opposite gender, or we might even think of it in terms of how we want to protect our children, okay? Because especially in the younger groups that we've had, social media is so common. Everybody has social media. There's a lot of good things on social media. You can find Mahapurukha di Katha on Instagram, Facebook, whatever it is. But you can also see the whole the 360 approach to the 180 of that. The complete other end of the spectrum of the ganda that's in the world, isn't it? And we're so easily influenced by what we see on social media, okay? So for example, at the beginning we mentioned people, right? We put people on a platform for good and bad. We put people on the platform in terms of Sikhi, right? That we see we get attached to people. But we say people are subject to change. If that person falls, person falls within their Sikhi, what happens to our Sikhi? We collapse because we're dependent on them. If we focus on the people of the world, right? We look at celebrities, we look at influencers, right? I'm going to use the example of females because it's just a little bit easier for us to relate to. That we have celebrities out there that influence a lot of people in terms of what beauty is, right? That people of the Western world believe that beauty is having a certain hair color, being a certain figure, certain weight, certain attributes, certain looks, isn't it? Okay? And we think that is beauty. But that's not beauty. Why is that not beauty? It's something I've said over and over again. It's subject to change. Okay? How can something be beautiful if it's subject to change? Because if you look at most of these celebrities, They don't naturally look like that. They probably have surgery to look like that. Okay? To try and maintain what they have, maybe. They might use Botox or whatever it is. Okay? They might use that to maintain that, but they're fighting it. They're trying to fight against. It's like swimming against the current. Okay? You're trying to fight against something that is subject to change. You're not going to win. You're going to drown with it. If you try swimming against the current in the ocean, it's not going to work for you. No one's that good of a swimmer. You can't fight something that is subject to change because it is going to change. It's inevitable. Right? And we put that on a pedestal that we think that's beauty. That's not beauty. Beauty is something that is outside of change. That is Guru Sahib themselves. But we idolize those people, and they influence us. They influence our Sikhi. They influence our personal lives. They influence the lives of people around us. Okay? And I can tell you firsthand, as being a school teacher at a Sikh faith school, okay, I've seen I used to teach secondary. I've seen how social media influences them. Okay, how Bibia in particular are struggling, not just at secondary schools, but outside of school as well. They'll get comments about their case, for example. Okay, because the way of the world will make us believe that having case is not natural, it's not beautiful, but it is, because Guru Sahib tells us. And it influences us so much, unfortunately, that Bibia feel pressured to actually remove in their case. And that's not just from those celebrities, those influences, it's the Singhs as well. Because the Singhs look at these videos, they look at these pictures, and they believe that's what beauty is. And they end up putting pressure on Bibia, that when they want to get married, that this is what they're looking for. That if you don't fit this model, then we don't accept that. And that's so far from Sikhi, it's unbelievable. And that puts pressure on Bibia to cut their case. But even cutting your case is subject to change, because there's no way that you can actually stop your hair from growing. Whether you take medicine or whether you cut it, it will grow back. Whether you go down a laser treatment, whatever it is, it comes back. So that action you did is subject to change anyway. So we might as well accept the bana, accept the hukum of Maharaj, because Guru Sahib tells us that that is beauty. Okay? That gas is what protects us from going to the narak. Guru Gobind Singh Sahib Maharaj themselves will pull us out if we follow that teaching, isn't it? But I've talked about people of the world. A few years ago, I did something similar about this talk. Okay, just this topic. It seems to be coming up every year for me. Don't tend to go down this avenue, but it just comes up. But it's now actually progressed that we don't even have to look outside of our qawm. We have Sikh influencers that are pushing this brand of beauty. Okay, it might be the way that they dress. It might not be the most modest way of dressing, and people are being influenced by that and seeing that and accepting that. Or we see what we call that famous people on Instagram, those influencers that are dating, and this concept of Sikhi dating is coming to mind, that we're dating to get married and whatnot. Okay, I'll set you a challenge. I'll give you a year. From this camp to next camp, find me anywhere within Gurbani or Itihas or Guru Sahib's Rayatname or the Hukamname, anywhere in history. You can provide me with one example where dating is allowed. Find me one. I'll give you a year. If I could gamble, I'll put my house and you're not finding it because it's not there. It's not written anywhere, but why do we do it? Okay? This is not just a teaching for us, but it's a teaching, a sikh that we have to give to our children now. Okay? We have to put that reverse in that culture. Because through that, we're only going to receive pain. We've said that attaching themselves to people, they're subject to change, they are going to change. Relationships change. Okay? Now, sometimes we think that this teaching is only for the Khalsa. It's only for Amritaris. If we're not Amritari, we can do what we want. It's not. These teachings are for the Sikh of the Guru. If you believe Sri Guru Granth Sahib Ji Maharaj to be your Guru, then you have to accept these things. That you have to refrain from hukka, hajamat, halalu, haram. We have to refrain ourselves from indulging in intoxicants, different types of drugs, alcohol. Okay? Hukka, hajamat means removing our case. Okay? That's from the top of your head to your toe. Okay? Any form of BRP to our case we can't do. Halalu is referring to meat, halal meat, or any type of meat, because if you eat meat, you're going to take on the actions, the karam of the animal. Someone like myself, I've got too many actions of my own to repay. I'm not going to be, God knows how long it's going to take me to repent for all of these sins that I've committed. Okay, I don't need to take on somebody else's. Okay, so I'm going to refrain from doing that. Okay, that's the simple term for me. Okay, that's enough for me to accept it. But we also must stay away from haram actions. We cannot have any physical relationship outside of marriage. Doesn't matter whether you're dating to get married or dating just for the fun of it. Okay, Amritari or non-Amritari, as a Sikh of the Guru, we can't do it. This is what we need to bring into not just our lives, but our children's lives as well, because I'm going to ignore that. This is something that we have to bring into our lives, okay, into our children's lives, because I'll give you first-hand experience. Where I've taught at a Sikh school, you'd think that some parents will send their kids there for the Sikhi, right? Some of them do, don't get me wrong. But some of them just send them there so they can be in an environment with Sikhs. Because we've washed down Guru Sahib's teaching so much that we think as long as they're both Sikh, it's fine. Okay, we'll accept it. Just Sikh over here, we accept it. Or if they're both Amrita, we accept it. How far can you whitewash it down? Hana? That parents send their kids to those schools so they mix with other Sikhs. So if they're going to do it, they do it with Sikhs. That's not the way. That's not the way of the Guru. The way of the Guru is sacrificing that. Okay? We let that go, that side of us. And that's what we have to install within our children. That we have to see each other as brothers and sisters. Okay? Because if you don't, coming back to the Bhakti, Antakala jo istri simre, if we think about women or we think about the opposite gender, what do you think happens? What do you think you're going to be reborn as? Okay, yes. You're being born as a Beswa. Anybody know what Beswa is? Beswa is a prostitute. Okay? So Guru Sahib says to us, Beswa Jon Walla Walla Uttare. We're reborn as a prostitute. Okay? A prostitute has no ijjat within the world, has no respect, no self-worth in the world. Na ore maa pe koi ijjat rendi a. Na ore nanake parvar di ijjat rendi a. Na ore the pati, their husband will have no self-respect, have no worth within the world if they become a prostitute. Okay? Now, I'm sure we can all imagine, this is saying for male or female, we both become prostitutes, okay? We both be reborn as a prostitute. Doesn't matter which one you are. I'm sure none of us want to have that, okay? Have that as our occupation, okay? That surely we have more to give, okay? That surely we have more to give than to give ourselves up for these actions, okay? That our mind is what we're trying to cleanse, isn't it? We're trying to clear that. Like Benji talked about mat, isn't it? Our intellect. We're trying to clean that intellect with Gurmat, with the Guru's intellect. But when we commit these actions of karma, we are scarring our mind over and over and over again. Those scars won't heal. They'll always be there. So when you try doing Simran or reading Gurbani, you might have bad thoughts coming to your mind. Your mind is running everywhere. And the first thing it's going to run to is those avenues that we have created in our mind. Those thought processes that we have created, that we have dedicated our lives to, that we've made sacrifices to. So we might be reading Gurbani, we might have a foreigner about calm coming to our mind. It's because those scars that we have. So why don't we protect ourselves? And again, this is not just might not be aimed at this age group, but many people in the room might have kids, okay? Or we all certainly hope to have kids one day, isn't it? Okay? We have to teach our children the very best. Okay? The very best version of Sikhi. That we want them to not refrain. We want them to refrain from these actions because they're going to be reborn as a Beswa. They're going to be reborn as a prostitute if we indulge within those actions, isn't it? There's going to be no ijjat left for us if we indulge within this. And again, the whole concept of dating is not in Sikhi. Whether you're Amritari or non-Amritari. If you're in a position where, obviously, I'm just trying to guess that some people aren't married at the moment, okay? You don't have to chase it. You do not have to chase it. You don't have to go looking for it. It's in your previous actions. The person that you're going to get married to is already preordained. You don't have to go chasing it. Or aappi barakat ho juga. It's going to come to the forefront by itself. Okay? I'll give you my own example. When the rest come for me, okay, I wasn't looking to get married at all. I was just happy doing my santya. Happy learning the katha that I was doing at the time. That's all I wanted to do. I said to my parents, I was at an age where my parents wanted me to get married. I was like, listen, hold back. I haven't even got a job. At the time, I weren't working. My focus was on my Sikhi. Okay? And I said to them, don't even bother asking for the rest of it for me because I'm not really, it's not what my attention is on right now. But I had in my mind that if the rest come from one of my ustads, I'll accept it. I'll see it out, isn't it? And I honor this satgar than the rich, isn't it? Out of respect for them, I'll money it basically, right? And that's what happened. I was doing my santya after we finished the santya, because obviously it was COVID at the time. After we did it on the phone, that's what happened. After we done santya, he was like, listen, there's a rest that I think is going to be kind of suitable, whatnot. And I didn't have to go looking for it. I didn't have to go chasing on it by flaunting myself on Instagram or commenting on people's posts to just try and get a reaction so we can start a conversation and whatnot. Okay? We need to learn it, and this is what we need to then teach to our children as well, because we're seeing what the dangers of it is if we attach ourselves to the wrong things, isn't it? We are running out of time, so I am going to try and just fast track it, so I apologize if I go a bit too fast now. It's not been 5 minutes since the last sign went up. I refute that. So, antakal jo ladke simre, aisi chinta mein hai je mare. So, ladke, what does ladke mean? Bache, isn't it? Children. If you think of your children at that last thought, whether that's like, what's going to happen to my children after I die, or whether it might be, you might be married and it wasn't in your karam to receive children, even if you die thinking, I didn't have no children, even if you have that thought in your mind, okay, what do you think happens? You come back as a pig, well done. Okay, so you come back as a pig, because a pig is known to have around about 12 to 13 children. Okay, they live in their own filth. They go madan, they go toilet in the same place and they roll around with it and they enjoy it. Okay, and they have so many children. As hard as it is, okay, not to think about your children, if you do as your last thought, if that's your pattern, that it's going to be all about your children, you have that more, you have that attachment. Okay, this is the hardest part of attachment, where it's talking about family, because it's so fine lines, isn't it? But we're going to talk about very surface level just because of the time. If you think about your children, you're going to be reborn as a sur, you're going to be reborn as a pig. And when I listened to the katha when I was trying to prepare for this talk, Bhagat Singh Ji said something and it struck fear in me. I'll be honest with you. They said that if you think about your children, you get reborn as a pig, you will never get that opportunity to be a human again. You will never have this opportunity again. You're going to be stuck with that wala uttare. You're going to be reborn over and over again, okay, as a pig. So now that we're here, now that we have this opportunity with Sri Guru Granth Sahib Ji Maharaj, let's take it. Let's try and obtain union with God. Let's make those sacrifices for our children so they can be, we expose them to Sikhi, okay? Because it's all well and good. If we think about our children, but we don't reason we're going to go Sikhi, then we've lost either way, isn't it? But if we remember our Godasik at the last time, if we raise our children to be Godasiks and we make them a Sevadar of the Panth, okay, we can still be protected that way, surely. Okay? And we all know that they're going to be fine because they have Sikhi. As long as our children have Sikhi, okay, say 15 minutes, yeah? I see a 1 before that 5. If we raise our children with Ingal Sikhi, we know that they are Sevadar of the Qawm. Okay? We know they're going to be alright. As long as our children have Sikhi, everything else is secondary, isn't it? Whether they have big houses, whether they have money, as long as they have Sikhi, they're okay. So that will give you some kind of, what's the word? Reassurance. Thank you guys. Okay? It's hard, you lose thought process, very hard. But it'll give you some reassurance. So you'll be able to think about Maharaj. You might be tension-free at that time because you know they are Gurusik, huh? So let's raise our children within Gurusikhi. Let's expose them to camps like this where they can see Sangat, little kids running around with the Dastara on, running around playing Gataka, okay? Come into the Divans, come to Amrit Villa. But before we can raise our children in Sikhi, we need to sacrifice ourselves for Sikhi. We need to dedicate our lives for Sikhi. Again, because of time, Andakara jo mandir simre, what does mandir mean? Houses, okay? If we build up big houses and we die thinking about our house, what do you think happens? What do you think of reborn as? A ghost, isn't it? So many people wonder whether ghosts exist, okay? Whether they're a form of life. Gurbani tells us, Pret John Vala Vala Uttare, Pret is referring to Poot Pret, okay? That if we think about our houses and we get attached to them, we're going to be reborn as a ghost. Again, if we get that timeline out, that of like good life form, bad life forms, where would you put a ghost? Yeah. So you put them towards the low form of life, isn't it? Because it's very difficult for a ghost to obtain liberation, okay? Because of their livelihood, right? There's a Sakhi in the times of Sri Guru Tegh Bahadur Sahib Ji Maharaj, where they went to go give Shaheed, okay? They got made to stay in a valley full of ghosts, okay? And a goddess came to them, and they had so much Shakti and they had so much power. They said, Guru Sahib, give us Agya so that we can go and we'll drown Aurangzeb. Okay? That's how much Shakti that we have. We can drown Aurangzeb in a moment. Guru Sahib said that we have no vrod, we don't have no nafrat with anybody. We don't hate anybody, let alone Aurangzeb. They said, you need to remember who gave you that Shakti. And they told the Guru Sikh to do Mathatik, bow down, and Guru Sahib took that Shakti back, they took those powers back. And the Guru Sikh goes, okay, let me do some seva with you, Guru Sahib. And they went and got sugar canes, and so Guru Sahib could have the ras out of it, so they could chew and take the ras out of it. The ghosts, the Pret saw this, the Poot Pret saw this, and they said that Guru Sahib, Sikharavich inni Shaktiya, that your Guru Sikhs have so much Shakti, have so much power. That how much power must you have? Why don't you liberate us from this June? And what happens, kind of short, is Guru Sahib takes the shalya of the sugar canes and they put it to the mouth of the goddess of the Poot Pret, and they obtained liberation. Now, ghosts are very temperamental, if we can say, right? And the reason why we say it's such a low form of life is because, again, Vadde say in the Katha that ghosts have Savamanadi Pok. Okay? Savaman is around about 48 kg worth. Okay? In order to satisfy their hunger, they have to eat 48 kg worth of food. Now, if you think about your London thali that you're going to go have, how much do you think that thali weighs? You can include the thali if you really want to. Okay? It's probably what? A couple of 100 grams? Okay? It's not even a kilogram, right? So imagine how much food you must eat to be able to satisfy Savamandi Pok of 48 kg. But Vadimapur also say in the Katha that the mouth of a ghost, how big do you think it is? Like the physical mouth, how big do you think it is? Size of a pin, you're very close. So the eye, do you think of like the eye of a needle? Yeah? Eye of a needle, that's how big the mouth is. So imagine you've got Savamandi Pok, yeah? You need to eat 48 kg worth of food in order to satisfy your hunger, to cleanse that hunger, but you got to put it through the eye of a needle. When you go home, go get a needle, try to put food for it, see how hard it is, isn't it? Just put one body key through there, see what happens, isn't it? Yeah? So this is why they're burning. Because it's a form of torture, isn't it? That they're that hungry, but they can't actually feed themselves. Okay? So it's such a low form of life. We don't want to be that. But Guru Sahib tells us of Kalame Pred Jini Ramana Pashata, that we're all ghosts. If we do not remember Ram, if we do not remember Ramya Hoya Ram, permission of Vaheguru themselves, if we do not remember God, okay, then we are all ghosts. We all have Savamandi Pok of those desires, those hungers for worldly things, isn't it? That we cannot satisfy ourselves within if we do not recite God's name, okay? But we've talked about the negative aspects that we can try and attach ourselves to, but if we try to think of the positive of what that true purpose is, to attach ourselves to something that's not subject to change, okay, that is Narayan. Narayan is a word from Maharaj, okay? If we attach ourselves, we dedicate ourselves, we sacrifice to ourselves to that Narayan, that Parameshwar Vaheguru, God themselves, then what happens? then we'll be able to have God reside within our hearts. Okay? We'll be able to see God everywhere we're in creation. Okay? We won't have to go looking for God because we'll see them within ourselves. We'll remove those barriers, that illusion that is stopping us from finding Maharaj within ourselves. So there was more to this talk, but obviously because you've got Langar Seva to go to, we're going to have to leave it there. Okay? Benji's probably my least favorite person in the room now. But there's so much more. Okay? But it's about removing ourselves from that thing that is subject to change. Anything that is subject to change is going to cause us pain. So let's go directly to that source of sukh, of happiness, of peace, of anand, which is Sri Guru Granth Sahib Ji Maharaj. Let's find the way that we're going to dedicate ourselves to Guru Sahib. Use the maya that we have for the seva of Sri Guru Granth Sahib Ji Maharaj. Teach ourselves, but teach our children about Guru Sikhi as well, about the dangers of those relationships, of those last thoughts. I want you to think about what your last thought is before you go to sleep today. Okay, when you go to sleep, think about what your last thought is. And tell me if you're happy with that to be your last thought. If not, we have to create those patterns, those avenues within our mind that we make those good habits. Okay, so there's more that you could go and we were going to go through the Shabad of Jata Pahara Dheer Sunyad. That comes up in Japji Sahib. Go listen to the Katha and you'll see how it links. Okay, or ask me outside and we can go through how that links. Okay, if I've offended anybody with what I have said, please know that it was not my intention to do so. Please do forgive me for my shortcomings, which I've got many of them. That I do a benti to Sri Guru Granth Sahib Ji Maharaj in their charan, that we are all able to dedicate our lives to Guru Sikhi, that we're all able to make those sacrifices and recite their name for not just ourselves, but for the next generation as well, so we can all obtain the darshan of Sri Guru Granth Sahib Ji Maharaj, okay? So please forgive me for all my mistakes. We're just going to say Bala Fateh one last time. If you can all just sit up, put your hands together, and just Bala Fateh, and then you will be free to go and have langar and whatnot. So, Vaheguru Ji Ka Khalsa, Vaheguru Ji Ki Fateh.